Good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. If you could all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. At this time, is there any public comment? Okay, seeing no public comment, can I get a verification in the posting of the agenda, please?
Tara Adams for the record. The agenda was posted on the 9th day of April 2026 between the hours of 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. at all the locations listed on the agenda in accordance with statutes.
Thank you, Tara. We'll move on to number 5, consideration and possible action, approval of the minutes of meetings held on February 19th, 2026, Budget Workshop Day 1 and February 20th, 2026, Budget Workshop Day 2. Can I get a motion for those minutes, please?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes for February 29, 2026, Budget Workshop Day 1, February 20, 2026, Budget Shop Work Day 2.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a second motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Our first appointment, 6A, consideration and possible action, update on current activities, plans, or actions related to the Bureau of Land Management, Carson City District. And the floor is all yours.
Good morning. Zach Reichel, Bureau of Land Management, Stillwater Field Manager. Good morning, everyone, I guess, again. It's early. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is grazing range management. This is a picture of a prescribed grazing. This is the first prescribed grazing, I think, that we've been doing in Carson City District. I believe this is the operator here is Pleasant Valley Livestock. This was a project and shows where we actually attempted, well, not attempted, but implemented this prescribed grazing, which is we turn out, targeted is where we go to specific places along fire breaks and things like that and run livestock on it or have operators run out livestock in order to clear those. This is actually as part of a rotation and is kind of meant to allow the permittee and the BLM to address areas where there's increase fuels and reduce it on specific grazing allotments. This shows a fire that was started in March in that allotment where the prescribed grazing is taking place. Obviously, the fire started on the left side of your screen there on that photo. And on the right-hand side of the fence line, that's where the prescribed grazing took place. So early indications is positive, and we're going to continue to work with gathering data on this and possibly implement this in other places and other allotments around the county and around the district. So just wanted to start off with that. All right, grazing management. So this month, actually last week, we sent out interested party letters to 147 different individuals that have expressed interest over the years in the allotments and the grazing or the HMAs within the Carson City District, specifically the Stillwater Field Office. In order to kind of reduce the number, because a lot of those are non-responsive when we send out the letters. So on kind of a reoccurring basis from time to time, we will send out interested party letters with all of the allotments asking individuals if they're still interested in those allotments and receiving any sort of notifications about actions that are taking place in those allotments or in those herd management areas. We did send one to Churchill County, an interested party letter, and that's done so that we can help reduce some of the numbers of mailings that we do and identify specific allotments. So we're not mailing out, interested party letters to individuals that have absolutely no, interest in all of the allotments or HMAs within the Stillwater Field Office. So you would have received that. If you haven't received it, I'll send you a copy electronically so that you can have that and you can see, and then you can mark off. It's kind of got a checkbox that says we want to be notified whenever actions occur in this HMA or this allotment, and so we can make sure that you have a copy of that, but you should be receiving that. So we're just waiting to hear back. On June 1st, we're going to start using the new interested party list for those HMAs and grazing allotments so that we can continue. So if we have vacant allotments that are now coming back and becoming available, we can send out those lists, that mailing list to those individuals so that they can apply for those. Sage grouse, this really hasn't changed much. The only thing that's going on with this is since they signed the new record of decision for this, it has very specific Nevada management practices for grazing and built-in drought responses. We're going to do some internal training at the end of this month to get us up to speed as an office on how these are going to affect future actions, and so we'll have more information after that training. Wild horse and burro, we've had to put our census flights on hold so far for 2026. What is worth noting here is that we have a day on the schedule for the Lahontan Herd Management Area Gather. That's going to take place July 26th and will go for approximately 2 weeks into the first week of August. The goal of that gather is to reduce the number of animals, the number of horses in that HMA down to the appropriate management level, which I believe is 7 to 10 animals. Right now, the latest census flights and our predictions is that the population is at or a little bit above 800 animals. So it's going to be a gather. It's going to be a large gather. It's a very ambitious goal to remove that number of animals in that time frame. That is our intention, though, and so we'll have hopefully more to report back on that after the gather with some of the numbers that we receive there. The next priority is going to be North Complex. That hasn't changed, and then we had to reschedule our Nevada Correctional Center adoption event that was supposed to be held in March, and it had to be rescheduled due to weather. So those animals are going to be put up for adoption at the correctional facility in June. That date has not been determined, so we'll get you more information when that comes about. Geothermal projects, we really haven't seen too much movement on the Dixie Meadows. Well, we haven't seen any movement on the Dixie Meadow EIS, and so there's nothing really to report on that. Ormat is currently getting ready to begin resource confirmation drilling at a couple of different spots within within Churchill County. You can see there in the blue up to the top right of your screen is Dixie Valley. Diamond Flat is towards the bottom where you can see kind of towards the landfill. I believe that's east of Lahontan Reservoir. And so those are continuing to happen. We are getting more and more interest in geothermal in the area. And we have a number of projects that are starting kind of in Mineral County with a company called Zanscar and Ormat and a couple of other different producers that are looking at doing resource confirmation for geothermal energy. We just offered up, and in 2026, we have a lease sale that will involve about 320 acres within Churchill County. This is the one that's actually east of the Lahontan Reservoir, kind of. It looks like it's Horse Mountain, I believe, HMA, somewhere around there. So just outside of the expanded B16 area is where it looks like that one's going to go out. And so that's going to be made available. We're in the process of doing the environmental assessment on all of those parcels. The environmental assessment is not necessarily to take any actions on that. It's just the environmental assessment is in order to authorize the action of allowing the lease sale to move forward. Once the lease sale moves forward and there's a individual or a entity that is successful in winning the bid, then we would have to go through another environmental assessment and go through the NEPA process in order for them to do anything with that parcel as far as geothermal resource confirmation. And so that would take place at that time. Just because an entity wins the bid on that, the lease on that, it doesn't necessarily mean they could hold that lease for years and years and years and not do anything with it, which is relatively common with these types of actions, so. Mineral projects, nothing really to update here. Most of our mineral projects we're seeing are kind of popping up in Mineral County along kind of the same area. I think it's the Walker Lane vein that's kind of in there. So we're seeing a lot of new projects. Everything that was old is new again with the price of gold and some of the other commodities that they're going after. Lands and Realty, I won't necessarily beat this one up because I think that you receive a separate brief from Brian Bizzoni, who is the project lead for the Greenlink North project. It goes through multiple counties, and I believe it even starts outside. It might even be multiple states, but I believe he provides you with updates on that. No action on the right-of-way application for the War Canyon, Star Canyon, Cherry Creek right-of-way. We're waiting on the applicant to provide, or their contractor to provide us with additional information. Special recreation permits, we have one special recreation permit that's going to take place within the next couple of months. This one isn't going to be on May 16th. It's the Cold Springs Station Poker Run. It starts there at the Cold Springs Station Resort. You can see it up at the top of the screen there, and then it kind of runs down south towards Eastgate, and then I think they have a stop at Eastgate. It runs further south from there, and then kind of comes back up to Middlegate. I believe they have a stop at Middlegate, and then they complete the loop back up towards, again, to the Cold Springs Resort. So that's where that's going to take place on May 16th. Other than that, that's all I have for you. If you have any questions, I'd appreciate to take them at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments for the BLM? Okay, thank you for your time. 7B, first reading, consideration and possible action, Bill 2026B, Ordinance 8, an ordinance making corrections, deletions, additions, and revisions to Churchill County Chapter 2.08 Fire Board and 2.12 Fire Department and Fire Protection to modernize the code, enhance clarity, and align with current practices by 1, including gender-neutral terminology throughout all sections, 2, revising duties of the Fire Board and Fire Chief related to budgeting, 3, revising duties to the Fire Board and the Fire Chief related to hiring of paid Fire Department members, 4, updating the qualifications and responsibilities of the Fire Marshal, and 5, other matters related thereto. Chelsea, the floor is all yours.
Better now? Good morning. My name is Chelsea Sanford. I'm here on behalf of the Churchill County District Attorney's Office. Along with me, I have Alex Hafner from the Fire Department. We're here today for a first reading of proposed changes to Churchill County Codes 2.08 and 2.12. You can see by the agenda item, there is a description of the proposed changes. The purpose of these changes are to modernize it. These codes have not been updated in some time, and there's been a practice versus what's been in the codes. We want to align those for the best practices. In addition, this has been done in coordination with the city of Fallon. They're also going to be revising their codes to match what's in practice. And you can see some of the changes in here include not only coordinating to matching what's in practice, but also modernizing it for gender neutral. Instead of going from firemen, we're doing firefighters. And there were some general grammatical changes that had to be made in this. And you can see by the agenda item, we attached to it the proposed code changes. What's going to be deleted is stricken in red, and the proposed changes include what is in green. Yeah, I was like, that doesn't, you had me scared for a moment there, Tara. No problem. So you can see on this page 2 of the attachment, you can see in page 1 that was what was before the amendment, what's currently law. And you can see in red what's being stricken. Just kind of general grammar changes, changing the name from FVFD to FCFD, which it's its current name, and some cleanup of the language of what's in practice. Turn the page to page 3. Move up. All right, well, you can see by the packet. Yeah. The top of page 3. You can also see some of the changes that are made to the duties and responsibilities to the commission, changing what needs to be done by the fire board to the fire chief and what their responsibilities are. This has been done in conjunction with the volunteer fire department and matches what's actually in practice today. If you move down then, Tara, to 030, that section is going to be repealed. And that's actually going to be found in page 11 in a different subsection. But we're removing that budgetary process of how it's approved from there. And that's just to match what has been in pattern and practice. And then I'm going to move to page 4, which is the creation of 2.12. Those are just grammatical changes, including from commissioners. We're going to do Board of County Commissioners, and to correct the name of the fire department we have. If you go down, we are also changing the offers and line items of command. We're removing this attached chart that's inside the current county codes. We're removing it because that's no longer what's in operation. And again, we're trying to modernize it and match what's actually in operation. How it's going to be organized is going to be more of how it's done and naturally evolves as the time goes. We don't want to be attached to this chart that might not match what actually is currently in practice and also best suited to fight fires. All right, now I'm moving to page 7, which is 2.12.030. This is also some more grammatical changes and some changes as they're being sworn in by the fire board. It's going to be sworn in before the Board of County Commissioners. And that any removal process is going to be done through the bylaws of the fire department that they have. I'm moving to page 8 now. Whoop, up in green. We're removing one of the requirements. And so what that kind of moves everything up, but it's just some cleanup. Like, for example, number 4 must be a resident of Churchill County within 90 days. The changes, it used to just have the number 90, we added the word 90. And we also cleaned up some of the language in there. If you move to 2.12.050 for our marshal duties, you can see number 6 is where we're changing it. Instead of being an immediate supervisor to paid personnel, we're going to have any incidents need to be reported to the fire board. And then you can see in subsection B, again, there's more gender neutral language. Instead of he, we are they and there. And then if you would move to 2.12.060, fire chief duties. I think the biggest change in here is subsection G, where you can talk about the budget approval process. The prior language was convoluted and hard to read, and this was an effect of trying to clarify it. of who's going to be responsible for it and the process of it. And you can read how it is, how we thought it was best to do this. And this was done in conjunction with the city, because the city also, we share this budget process with them. And we both agreed through their legal counsel, the city, that a more clear language was best suited for this important topic. Then if you move on to 2.12.070, emergency fire powers, you can see again, we are just grammatically cleaning up the section and also gender neutral. And that's the same to 2.12.080, gender neutral language. And those are the subsequent changes. One of the noticeable changes that are not grammatical is 2.12.110, use of roadways and bridges. That's on page 15 at the bottom. We're adding the fire marshal should also have the ability for emergencies to how to take care. So it won't be just one individual. It also now it's going to include the fire marshals having those abilities to use of roadways and bridges. And that is the sum of a lot of our changes. You guys have any questions about our proposed changes?
Any questions or comments for Chelsea? Go ahead, Chris.
Chelsea, thank you for that. Excuse me. The org chart that you have, it looks like one is being removed and being replaced by another one.
No. At
Okay.
this time, it's just being removed from the code and
Okay.
is not being replaced.
Okay, thank you. Because I was going to say they look identical, so thank you.
No, but I think just trying to, the X at the very bottom through this program, which I enjoy this program, but I think because it's such a large item, it takes up a whole page. But
Thank you.
on page 6 of the proposed changes, you can see it's just X'd out, and then it's non-existent.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, is there any public comment? Okay, if none, a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to set a public hearing for Bill 2026-B, Churchill County Code 2.08 on May 7th, May 7th of 2026.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you, guys. Appointment 7C, consideration of possible action. You guys are going to kill me with these. Bill 2026A, ordinance 22, 32, 37, 39, 63, and 74, title, an ordinance making corrections, deletions, additions, and minor revisions to Title IX, Public Peace, Morals, and Welfare, Section 9.12, Adult Entertainment, Title 14, Building Codes and Construction, Section 14.04, Building Permits, Section 14.12, Building Codes, Section 14.16, Manufactured Homes and Mobile Home Installation Requirements, Title 16, Consolidation Development Code, Section 16.08, Zoning and Land Use, Section 16.12, Division of Land, Section 16.16, Development Standards, Section 16.24, Definitions and Development of Churchill County Public Works Design Manual document, where standards and standard details will be moved from the code to a new document. Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry about that.
Randy, if I could jump in real quick, since this is a public hearing, if we could swear Randy in. Since this is a public hearing, can we swear Randy in?
And state your name for the record.
Randy Hines?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in the matter now pending before the commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the board. So our department's planning to do some regular code updates to titles 13, 14, 16, and 19. And goals of these updates is to modernize land use and development, compliance with state federal laws, compliance with adopted building codes, and more specifically, just general cleanup of our sections that we use daily, and to have clarity within the code. So I'll kind of go through, we talked about them really briefly last meeting, but you got my presentation up. And anytime you want to stop me, if we want to get into detail, we can get, I've just got a presentation of kind of the general idea of the changes. If we want to look at the changes, we can do that. So section 9.12.050 special use permits, basically we're just updating this because we have the old the industrial code. We're just updating it to be I1, I2, and I3. We've got 1404.020, the application. We're updating the building permit application to follow our adopted IBC codes that we have, our 2024 codes. And we removed the water dedication requirements because this is in Title 13, so we just don't want to have the redundant information. So we'll just reference Title 13 on that. Section 1404.060, General Agriculture and Residential District Regulations. The building code, our adopted building codes have increased the accessory structure and when a building permit is required to be 200 feet, and our code states 120. So we're proposing to follow that, the building codes on that, and increasing that to 200 feet. We also revised the structure height section to not duplicate information that is in Title 16. And we revised the yard section to state a building permit must be obtained to erect any fence over 7 feet in height. Again, these are kind of to follow our building codes, adopted building codes. Section 414.12.030, codes adopted, added as published through Northern Nevada International Code Council Chapter Code Amendments, and added Northern Nevada Fire Code Amendments just to that section. 14.12.040, enforcement, we revised to state that the building official shall make the inspection set forth in the applicable sections of the adopted building code. And section 1416.075, placement requirements for manufactured homes not affixed to a lot within a mobile home park. We just had to update the industrial to I1, I2, and I3. So those were everything for our building section, our building title and code. Any questions on those? Okay. I'll jump over to the planning, Title 16. Again, we've got section 1608.050.4, general administrative procedures. We removed the temporary use permit and minor variance from the administrative reviews and added them to the minor administrative reviews. Again, just cleanup of what we have. Basically what this does is it reduces the notification for temporary use permits and minor variances to be 100 feet notification and not the 300 feet as it is in our SUPs. And then we deleted the administrative abandonment. Section 1608.080, special use permits, we removed the home-based or home business special use permit, and we added minor special use permit that will include the home business. And you'll see as we get down to our definitions, we have a minor, a general, and a major SUP now in our code. We removed the and then we removed the administrative special use permit. That's now a conditional zoning permit. Title or section 1608.160, First Estates District E1. We deleted the existing definition in that section and created a new definition that follows the requirements of Title 14 and the master plan. I think in there it was kind of said you can have the minimum lot size was 1 acre unless you had water and sewer. It could be a half an acre. That doesn't really follow what the master plan has. The master plan says 5 acres, and Title 14 has more requirements if there's water and sewer. So we just cleaned that definition up so it followed the master plan and Title 14. 16.12.040.2, parcel maps, map a division into large parcels. We added a new note regarding any development proposing parcels of less than 5 acres is only permitted if proposing 4 or fewer parcels, and more than 5 years have passed since the previous parcel map was recorded. Proposals not meeting this standard may be submitted and reviewed as a subdivision. So again, we're trying to limit the amount of parcel maps because you can have a parcel map that creates four parcels. You have 3 parcels and a remainder, 3 parcels and a remainder. We're trying to limit those and treat those more as subdivisions. We got section 16.12.040, plan unit developments. Again, just updated the I to I1, I2, I3. 16.16.010.7, streets and storm drains. We just updated the minimum access road sections to more define requirements of the minimum access road. These roads shall be a dead end. If there's a potential for an adjoining development, separate road easement shall be provided to meet the sections of 16.12.040. So if there's a road that could go into a larger parcel, say to the south, we need to extend that road to the end of the property so they have access to that for future development. So just kind of clean some stuff in there. 16.16.015, the design standards and illustrations. These are, we have 13 of these, I think, in code. We're deleting these out of code, and then these will be in our next agenda item. So again, we're just taking these out. 16.020.1 in density and dimension standards. Again, we removed the minimum average lot widths for R1 and R2 zoning. That was kind of a copy and paste from previous zonings, and it just didn't make sense. They were, for a 5,000 square foot lot, it said you had to have a minimum lot width of, I think, 80, and it just mathematically just doesn't work, so we deleted those. We changed the minimum lot size for E1 to half acre. Again, we'll explain this a little bit more because you can have half acre for E1 if you have water and sewer. We removed the I zone and added the I1, I2, and I3 zones to this table. We updated notes 2 and 3 to include knuckles and 90-degree bends. We deleted note 9 and replaced it with the notes stating minimum lot size shall be as stated in the table, only if both community sewer and water services are provided. If both services are not provided, the minimum lot size shall be as follows. And it says 1/2 acre if either community sewer services provided or community water services provided, along with dry line sewer facilities and a recorded waiver to protest the formation of and participation of a sewer financing mechanism and subsequent connection to future services. It could be 2 acres if community sewer or water services are not provided, but the director determines that the site qualifies for infill exception under the master plan and Title 13. And then it's 5 acres if neither A or B apply. So again, just to kind of clean that definition up in that section. We deleted note 14 and replaced it with a note regarding height limit exceptions. Section 16.16.020.6 advertising signs. Again, just updated this to have the I1, I2, I3. 16.16.020.8. This is the accessory dwelling unit and second permanent dwelling. We've changed the administrative special use permit to a conditional zoning permit. And then 16.24.010 definitions generally. We revised the accessory dwelling unit definition to be clear on what qualifies as an accessory dwelling unit. We've added that it needs to be clearly subordinate and incidental to the use of the main building, shall not exceed 1,000 square feet measured from the outside walls. A minimum of 1 bathroom must be installed. It is configured as living space, and a kitchen with or without a permanent means of cooking may be installed. There is building codes and assessor laws. They don't consider it a dwelling unless it has a permanent means of cooking. But nowadays, you can cook at a microwave and a Instapot on your barbecue. So that's why we're trying to clarify what is that accessory dwelling unit, because what we don't want is 3 or 4 or 5 of these accessory dwelling units on one parcel. We added new definitions for the conditional zoning permits that we added during the industrial code changes. And then we revised the special use permit to follow section 16.08.080 special use permits. And with that, that's a lot, but I can answer any questions, or we can go into detail if you guys would like.
Okay, any questions or comments for Randy? Is there any public comment? If none, a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve Bill 2026A and make changes to the Churchill County Code.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Appointment 7D, consideration possible action, adoption of Resolution 6-2026 for the development of the Churchill County Public Works Design Manual. Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Randy Hines for the record. Currently, most of our Churchill County design standards are written in our municipal code. What we're proposing here is to create this Churchill County Public Works Design Manual and extract those design requirements out of code and place them into this manual. This manual can be used for design and construction of Churchill County Public Works projects and any new development that comes into the county. So what we've done is, I'll kind of click into the table of contents, go to page 2. So this is kind of our general table of contents, and what we have is we have a design manual, purpose and definitions. That section we've filled out. Section 2 through 9 are kind of placeholders as it sits today, because that's stuff that we have to extract from code and then populate it into this manual. Again, that takes a code change to do that, so those will be future code changes we'll come to the board with to extract that information and get it into this manual. And that goes along with section 11 as well, because I don't think we even have that in code. That'll be something we have to create. Something we didn't have in code is our storm drainage requirements, our design requirements. We've created that and we've included in this document. So again, developers and engineers have that information on how to design their storm drainage system. Everything else they can kind of reference code as it sits today. So in the document, we just said, hey, go reference this section for sewer or this section for water. Go to the next page. Again, this is our design manual, purpose and definitions. Again, kind of tells us what the purpose of the manual is and goes through all the definitions. We'll skip down to section 10, which was page 17. And again, has title 2, 3, 4. Those are just placeholders for future changes. And then this is our storm drainage section. So again, these are all the requirements that are needed to design your storm drainage system for your development or any streets. And then the biggest portion of this, we can jump down to page 18, or maybe it's 19. 19. Keep going. Yeah, it should go down to details. Maybe I gave you the wrong page number. Sorry, 28. Close. And then this will be our Churchill County design standards. And what we've done is we've gone through and we've created. We had 13 currently standard details. Now we have 116. So we've gone through each section: water, sewer, storm drain, streets, and created all these standard details. And you can kind of scroll down through a few of these. These first ones are kind of general notes for each section. And you can we're not going to get into detail, but just kind of scroll down, keep going until we get to the first detail. Again, everything looks similar, they look the same. It's got all the information we need. And then we get down to kind of our first detail, which I think is, keep going. There's a lot of details. Keep going. And then, so our first detail is a water meter detail. And again, so our first section is water, and we go through water, sewer, storm drain. And again, these are pretty much standard details that are done throughout the state of Nevada, but we've made these more specific for what we want here in Churchill County. Again, I didn't want to go through all these. They're kind of all in your agenda packet if you wanted to look at them. But if you had any questions on those, I'm happy to ask or answer.
Okay, any questions or comments for Randy? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Randy, I do have one question. So when you start adding details to this, I assume one of the reasons you're doing this is so that doesn't have to go back in front of the board every time you add a detail, whereas if it was still in code, it would have to come back to the board. So as you're updating this, it's basically a living document that doesn't continually have to go back to the board, correct?
That is correct.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, or public comment? Okay, motion, please.
I would just like to say this is a long time coming, so thank you for taking on this task and getting us moving forward. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to adopt the Resolution 6 2026, a resolution to create the Churchill County Public Works Design Manual.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thanks, Randy. Appointment 7E, consideration and possible action, renewal of a contract with Resource Concepts Incorporated, RCI, for an amount not to exceed $85,000 annually through June 30th, 2028. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the county first entered into a contract with Resource Concepts back in September of 2026, and that was following a request for a proposal process, and it was to provide financial services to analyze the Carson District BLM Resource Management Plan, excuse me, and update the county's policy plan for public lands. So since that execution of the first contract, other public lands matters have arisen, such as FRTC, the modernization there, and the Lands Bill, which now has been the primary focus of the work that RCI does for us. However, RCI has the capability and the capacity to assist as needed to other key public lands and natural resource issues. In the past year, RCI provided review and comment on behalf of the county to the BLM's Greater Sage Grouse Land Use Plan Amendment and Environmental Impact Statement, the BLM's West-Wide Programmatic Solar EIS, and several project-specific National Environmental Policy Act documents. Mr. Drew is here today. He has a few things on the agenda, and I'm sure he will add to the things that RCI has been doing for the county. This contract, the terms of this contract are the same as the contract that we had previously. There is an updated fee schedule. However, the not to exceed price of $85,000 remains the same for the fiscal year. Work performed under the contract is authorized as an as-needed basis using a task order process outlining the contract under the direction of myself, with the contract not to exceed that $85,000 in a fiscal year. This is a 2-year contract, and so you would be approving this from July 1st of this year through June 30th of 2028. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions or comments for this agenda item? Okay, any public comment? If none, a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the contract renewal with Resource Concepts Incorporated effective July 1, 2026 through June 30th, 2028, and to authorize the county manager to execute the same.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Appointment 6F, consideration of possible action, a comment letter to the Nevada Department of Transportation regarding State Route 361 realignment environmental assessment. And Jeremy, the floor is all yours.
All right, for your record, Jeremy Drew, Principal Resource Specialist with Resource Concepts. Happy Tax Day. I celebrated by fighting a red pin and promptly lost today, so to add a little levity. In all seriousness, as pertains to the previous agenda item, we just want to thank you. We appreciate working with the county, and we'll continue to work hard for you all on issues regarding public lands and natural resources. One of the issues that is germane and pertinent at this point is the relocation of State Route 361 as relates to the FRTC expansion. NDOT has an EA out. We were able to look at the virtual presentation, the EA, and also attend the meeting in Gabbs at the home of the Tarantulas a couple weeks ago. And we've put together the comment letter on a couple of items that we did here. Just to flag a few on page 1. We appreciate the build alternative that NDOT's proposing. If you'll recall, when we first looked at the scoping, they were using the stair-step line that was out of date and per the ROD, and so that alignment has gotten much closer to the proposed expansion line and the curvilinear line, which has become my new favorite term. So we do flag that we appreciate that. We felt that the purpose and need should have a call out to the law. Not only is it required to keep the highway open, it's also required by federal law, and we felt that that would be appropriate. We want to make sure we flag that State Route 361 at present is not going to close before the new route is open. Doesn't seem like a good idea, but we don't want to take anything for granted. There's some talk about material pits and water. The material pit would be on the north end in Churchill County. The water would actually be coming out of Gabbs. They're talking about potentially putting an above ground temporary pipeline in. We flagged the potential of maybe looking at a new well at the material site to reduce water hauling or the pipeline. Whether or not they analyze that, I don't know, but I think it was worth the request because if that well were in place, it could serve future purposes for the county or even fire management on that edge of the boundary. There's some issues around fencing that we flagged and wildlife crossings. They're kind of planning to use big box culverts for crossings for both wildlife and cattle. Whether that works well or not, I'm not sure. And then you're going to have a range fence and a right-of-way fence. We just want to make sure all of that's tying in a manner that makes sense, not only for grazing permittees, but for wildlife as well. And then we also flagged for them keeping some of the existing roadways and on and off to the new highway open because we do still have restricted access into the range and then obviously open public lands to the east. So that's the letter in a nutshell, Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions. The one recommendation I may make, and this was an oversight on my part, but is to add BLM to the CC list, and that would be Melanie Hornsby. I'm happy to do that in coordination with staff.
Okay, any questions or comments for Jeremy?
I have a couple things. I understand this is a draft letter, and I read the letter, and I didn't understand it to cover this item, but they're installing new fencing along the new roadway. Do we need, and that's open range out there, so do we need to comment in there about having cattle crossings on the highway before it gets to that fence line, so there's no cattle caught inside of the new fence? Do we need to include that in our letter?
Yeah, great question, Commissioner. We did flag that to some extent. I think in the public hearing, what they told our person who asked that question was, well, we feel that maybe the cattle will use the underpasses or the box culverts. I'm not convinced that's the case. If we want to reiterate that and maybe push a little bit harder on making sure they're coordinating with the permittees, we could certainly add a bullet point to that extent.
I would like to include the cattle crossing in there since we're having new fence lines built and it's such a long highway or stretch of land, if you guys don't mind. And then there's a couple of housekeeping items I had there. I understand this is a draft letter. It'll be put on our letterhead, correct, as we send it out? And then can we correct the spelling of Commissioner Gettle's first name?
I wasn't going to say anything.
And add that he's the chairman also down at the bottom, I guess.
We will absolutely correct that.
That's all I have.
Any other questions or comments?
I know. Red on my hand and egg on my face.
Okay, any public comment? If there's no comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the comment letter to the Nevada Department of Transportation regarding State Route 361 realignment environmental assessment with the added comments from Member Blakey.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. 6G, consideration and possible action, engagement with the Bureau of Land Management. Bureau of Land Management implementation of the 2025 Greater Sage Grouse Resource Management Plan Amendment. Jeremy?
Yes, so Chairman, for your record, Jeremy Drew with Resource Concepts. This is an item that BLM approved a resource management plan amendment that was approved in January of 2026, excuse me. It has since been litigated in District Court in Montana, so we'll kind of see how that plays out. There's a chance that we may end up going back to the 2015 plan. This is something we've been tracking all the way back from 2015, even before we were working with the county. But with the county kind of being on the fringe of sage grouse habitat, it's kind of been interesting to see how this has evolved. So cover page is just a copy of the document. One of the big things that we've looked at since 2015 is how the mapping has played out, and the BLM and the state both have developed this primarily off of GIS modeling, which as they say, all models are wrong and some of them are useful. That certainly applies here. This is a useful model. It can look at habitat statewide, but there's some nuanced things that it misses. So what this slide shows is what the 2015 plan showed, and basically the maps we've dealt with since 2015. Relatively accurate per my assessment in the county. Certainly not perfect, but reasonable. The reason this is important is when you talk about priority habitat, which is shown in gold, and general habitat, which is that brown color, the BLM bases their allocation decisions on those mapping categories. So what can happen in those certain areas, what sort of grazing restrictions or plans need to be in place, things like that that can affect the county. If we go to the next slide, this is what the state has adopted in 2024. It's more pixelated. You'll note that there's no habitat in the Stillwater range. Some of the areas out by Cold Springs and the buffer areas around the Lex, this model became much more Lex-centric in the update, have all of a sudden gone to priority, even though we kind of know on the ground there's a lot of cheatgrass in that area. Again, it's more pixelated. It's kind of broken up when you get into the north end of the clans. Probably a decent model outside of some of those LEC updates. If you'll remember when they gave us the first draft of this, they actually had habitat mapped out like by Salt Wells and around Sand Springs and even out by Stillwater. So it was nice to see we got that cleaned up. I think the map came out much better than it would have otherwise had we not been engaged. And then if you go to the next map, this is what the BLM did. So they ran what they call a smoothing exercise in GIS. And a lot of that disparate habitat, especially in the Clan Alpines in different areas, kind of went away and got cleaned up and resolved, which may not be a bad thing. But it also, I think, gave us some weird anomalies that I'd like to discuss with BLM. The other thing you'll notice, the state map does not show habitat in the Stillwaters. This map now does show habitat in the Stillwaters. So I want to talk with them a little bit about how they plan to implement that and how they get consistent with the state, so we can understand that nuance. If you go to the next slide, this is kind of the allocation table, the one that the BLM had in 2015 and what we had proposed. They didn't adopt either of these tables. So there's some pretty significant changes and some pretty nuanced things, and I'm not going to go through them all, but for example, solar energy in 2015 was excluded from general habitat. It's now open, so a little bit more potential for development in kind of the lower grade habitat. And if you go to the next slide, I think this is one you saw from BLM when they presented on Greenlink North a couple of meetings ago, and you'll kind of see how the allocations for major right-of-ways changed. It used to be that that in priority areas, it was an avoidance, and the same with general, and now it's switched, and some of the exceptions on how you develop in those habitats have changed. So it gets really convoluted really fast when you change the map, you change the allocation table, and then you change the exceptions to that. I think the punchline and the update and why I wanted to give this today, if you go to the next slide, we talked on most of these, but looking forward, there's a couple things coming up. So next Friday, the 23rd, the BLM is going to provide a training for cooperating agencies at the Nevada State Office in Reno. We are invited to that. I think myself and Mr. Sanford are the two designees from the county, but if others would like to join, you're more than welcome. All the sage grouse you can handle. But they are going to provide essentially to cooperating agencies the same briefing and training that they're giving their own staff. I think Zach mentioned that earlier. So it'll be good to see what the staff is hearing and how those changes are being rolled out to staff. Because on May 7th, we also have a cooperating agency meeting that's been set up through NACO to talk to the BLM directly on concerns with implementation. So I just want to make sure that the county is still comfortable being engaged as this implementation rolls out. And some of the forward-looking concerns I have specific to Churchill County is mapping, like we talked about. How are we going to deal with the difference now between BLM and the state having separate maps? How do we deal with things like the Stillwaters, where the state doesn't have mapped habitat, but the BLM does? You know, what would the process be for modification if we start finding areas that truly aren't habitat and it's holding up critical projects? How do we deal with that? And I know there's processes in the document in place, but how that's implemented is going to be really critical. Same thing with allocations and exceptions. We worked really hard to get allocations and exceptions to some of those allocations in there, like being able to maintain roads in times of the year that maybe are otherwise prohibited for other development. emergency services, all the administrative things that the county has to do in sage-grouse habitat, and sometimes we can't wait till June 30th when they're done nesting to get those things done. So the other things that are a little bit different that I'm not as worried about for Churchill County but are worth flagging, how they deal with adaptive management and disturbance caps. Those are not necessarily the same as the state, or in the state's case, the state plan does not talk about disturbance caps if you start getting a lot of development within a given sage-grouse area. And then how they start incorporating some of the best available science. The plan is supposed to be based on that. There's some grazing studies that came out of the University of Idaho that weren't incorporated quite as extensively as we would have liked to have seen, especially around the habitat objectives. So those are kind of my talking points as we go into this next series of cooperating agency meetings. But I wanted to make sure that the commission was comfortable with that. And again, anyone who wants to participate in those meetings from the county standpoint, we can make that happen. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions or comments for Jeremy? Any public comment? If none, a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to authorize the county manager in coordination with RCI and the Nevada Association of Counties to engage with the Bureau of Land Management's implementation of the 2025 Greater Sage-Grouse Resource Management Plan Amendment.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. 6H, consideration and possible action, presentation of a public lands and natural resource tracking list. Jeremy?
For your record, Jeremy Drew with Resource Concepts. I'll step through a little bit of this. I won't spend a ton of time with the FRTC because I think you're pretty up to date. But on that first page, we're still working through implementation plans for conveyances and checkerboard. I think Chris has probably kept you pretty apprised on the road situation. We talked about State Route 361. I've provided the updated Gantt chart from the FRTC or the IEC meeting in March. Kind of some interesting flags since the last time we looked at that. So the new fence development on B16 has been truncated. If you'll remember, that used to stick out beyond the Lone Tree and Sand Canyon Road construction. I think Lone Tree and Sand Canyon Road construction is probably a bit ambitious. So it'll be interesting when we have the next IEC meeting in Fallon to discuss how all that is going to come together as it relates to closing or going operational on ranges. Zach also mentioned the horse gather, and so going to be a little bit interesting. That herd area is in part bisected by the new fence, so there's going to be some interesting challenges around that. The other thing that I would flag on B17 and B20 that I'm sure you've already heard about, but letters did go out to grazing permittees on those ranges on March 2nd. So they have officially 2 years notice. They can stay on those ranges until March 2nd of 2028 and potentially beyond. Although the way B17 or 16 played out, I would anticipate they will be asked to discontinue grazing in March of 2028. And so things are going to, I think, really heat up on those ranges as they move forward. The other thing that I noticed on B17 is in the NDOT EA that we just talked about, it talks about construction of State Route 361 being completed in October of 31. And I always struggle with federal fiscal years, but I don't think that lines up with the Gantt chart very well. And so again, to our comment, early on, we want to make sure that's open and available to the public before anything is closed. The other two items that we'll be tracking, and we've kind of looked at it in a quasi-cooperating agency status, but their integrated resource, natural resource management plan and wildfire management plan are both set up to go public in 2026. So we'll want to continue to look at those and make sure those plans are consistent with the law and everything else that we're interested in. As relates to Department of Interior and BLM, there was a really good meeting in Elko yesterday hosted by a grazing group. They had some national officers from the Forest Service, which doesn't pertain as much to Churchill County, but Department of Interior and BLM were there out of Washington, D.C., and provided a really good update on what they're looking at a national level. So they've already updated the NEPA regulations and rulemaking. NEPA will be much faster going forward, and there will be much fewer opportunity for the public and the county to engage on their public reviews. So like they don't require a draft environmental impact statement all the time anymore. Scoping can happen in-house. So the punchline I take from that for my county clients is cooperating agency status, I think, becomes even more important now than ever, so that you do have those opportunities even before the public's looking at documents to provide in key input. They're also getting ready to release an update of their grazing regulations. We were told to look for that in May of 2026. Then they're going to update their planning regulations, like resource management plans, and how they're going to deal with those going forward. Then they're going to start talking about special designation rules, so wilderness areas, NCAs, things like that that we now have. And then finally, and certainly not least, they will look at updating their wild horse and burro regulations. So pretty ambitious schedule on DOI rollout of new proposed rules. They made it very clear that they're interested in what folks in Nevada have to say about all that. And so certainly that's something we'll keep an eye on, not only for the county, but in assistance with the Nevada Association of Counties. The one other flag, and this was kind of the last thing that got brought up in the meeting, and I'm not convinced that all of the staff knows, but yesterday they announced that John Raby, the state director of BLM, will be retiring, and it sounds like that'll be effective likely by the end of the month. John, whether you agreed with him or not, was always very transparent and open with the counties. There's kind of a pretty significant loss there in terms of institutional memory, and BLM's already dealing with, I think, a 40% vacancy rate, so losing leadership is not good, and it sounds like he may be one of several state directors that are kind of all going out at the same time. So it'll be interesting to see how they backfill that in the short term and the long term, and hopefully we get someone with some institutional memory and some understanding of the issues we're dealing with, not only in Churchill County, but in the state. So I did want to flag that for you. The last thing that I'll mention, actually two things. So BLM gave you an update on Greenlink North. We're still tracking that. I was hoping by pushing back this update, we would have their supplemental documents out, and maybe we could do a letter at the same time. Since they presented to you, they've moved that date back even more. The website says it'll come out sometimes between May and July of 2026. So at some point, we'll be looking at the supplemental documents for Greenlink North, but today won't be that day. And then the last one I'll flag, Great Basin Transmission Pipeline is proposing what they're calling their 2028 expansion project. There's some information attached, and probably the second and third page to me are the most critical. So the second page kind of lays out the project timelines, and they're just starting their FERC pre-filing process. Sounds like they're going to have some local open houses, providing all their baseline studies, starting NEPA, and then they'll submit a full FERC application, which will basically be like a plan set and plan of operations. And then we'll go into a NEPA review. The one thing I've learned about FERC is they move very fast, and again, they are not necessarily as transparent as we're used to with projects on BLM or some of the other federal agencies' lands. So as this rolls out, I think it's worth keeping an eye on. We'll try and get some more visibility on when some of these open houses are going. But I think it's important to the county because it looks like they're proposing on page 3 a couple of new routes in the western side of the county. And as I read the map, potentially realigning the existing pipeline off of I-80 for at least a segment. So again, something we'll kind of keep an eye on, and as we get more information, we'll make sure the county manager and the commission as appropriate are aware of that. With that, Chair, I'm happy to try and answer any questions.
Okay, any questions or comments for Jeremy?
Just on your list there, you had mining. Is there any movement out at where Getchell Gold is or where Bell Mountain is? Is there? I've read some stuff that seemed like they're trying to do something maybe in the Fondaway Canyon, but
Yep,
is
great
there
question,
any
Commissioner.
good news there?
I don't have anything imminent. The last time I talked to Getchell Gold, and this is probably 8 months ago, they had indicated that they continue to be encouraged by their exploration program. So we can certainly reach out to them. I know they used to give more frequent updates to the commission, but I'd be happy to reach out to them and say, hey, it might be time just to update where you are and what you're finding. Bell Mountain, the latest update I saw was on Zach's slide earlier, and it sounds like they're kind of getting towards final planning, final design. I have not heard anything about when they plan to go operational, but I'm sure they'll continue moving the project forward as long as mineral prices remain kind of where they're at this point. So I don't have any more specific updates than that. It's been quiet on the mining side. But that being said, I know all these projects are moving forward because of the price of minerals.
Thank you. If you could reach out maybe with a phone call or something, just report back to Chris.
Absolutely.
And he can give us a quick update or something.
Be happy to.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Did anyone want to pull any of the letters received? Okay, if not, we'll move to old business. Old business 8A, consideration of possible action, update and discussion on the tentative budget for fiscal year 2026, 2027, and possible input and direction from the Board of County Commissioners to the Comptroller regarding changes to the departmental budget request since the budget hearing held on February 19th and 20th, 2026. Sherry?
Thank you. I passed out our tentative budget, just the summary pages, and we have to submit that to the Department of Taxation today. And I just wanted to go over what we changed. We delayed the new payroll requests by a quarter, so 25%, and that resulted in changing the fund balance for the Parks and Rec, so they're no longer negative. And then to true up the general fund, we had to transfer $950,000 from the Navy money, and again, that won't be transferred unless it's necessary. It's going to be a holding place, and that gives us the fund balance in the general fund of $1,133,838, which is slightly above the 4%, which is required by the state. And you can see all the fund balances on page 8 of the packet that I passed out. So I was just giving you an update if you have any questions. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from board or staff?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to comment that on that transfer from the Navy money. Before that happens, I'd like to have a discussion of where we decide that money comes from, not maybe the Navy money, but maybe somewhere else. I'd just like to have that discussion if the time comes necessary.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, if not, a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the tentative budget for fiscal year 2027 and direct the comptroller to provide the Department of Taxation as outlined in statutes.
Mr. Chair, I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. 8B, consideration of possible action, adoption of the Churchill County Compensation Study performed by Baker Tilly, adoption of an updated compensation table, assignment of positions to grades in the compensation table, and adoption of adoption of an implementation method for the next fiscal year. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joe Sanford for the record. This item will be substantially less than is agendized. I've been in communication with Baker Tilly. The county representatives met with them about 2 weeks ago. They were going to take all of their information and provide us an updated and final recommendation. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get that completed prior to today's meeting. I have had some communication with them, and they have promised to have it completed by the end of this week. That would allow us and give us some time to have a discussion and review before putting it on the board meeting for the first meeting in May for a final adoption at that time. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments for Joe?
The final moment is the first meeting in May, because we have to submit our final budget before the next meeting.
We'll be able to take any comments you may have at the meeting in May, make those changes, and then have them incorporated into your budget for your budget meeting in the second meeting in May.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I will need guidance for sure by the first meeting in May.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? I guess it's kind of just an informational piece because we really can't move to approve it, so. Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll just move on to the next agenda item. New business 9A, consideration of possible action, approval of a modification to the joint funding agreement. You've got to be joking me. 23ZJFA00139 with the U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, for the Carson River groundwater basin levels and water quality monitoring in the amount of $20,000, split evenly between fiscal year '27 and fiscal year '28. Alexa?
See, I wasn't the longest one this time. A little light reading today. Yeah, so this is just a renewal of the agreement that we've had with them since this one specifically 2023. We've been in agreement with USGS for about 20 years now, but specifically this one where we petitioned CDWSD, Carson Water Subconservancy District, to join in and make a joint effort. This one's been around since about 2023. With them combined, we were able to cover all of the Carson River basin and for sort of a more complete watershed picture and monitoring. And what they do is they do the watershed levels, the groundwater levels, and they do annual and biannual quality testing of the water. And they test for, let's see, they do the temperature, pH, conductance, dissolved oxygen, major ions, arsenic, nutrients, and nitrates. And in Churchill County, they found levels of arsenic and nitrates, and they monitor those because those are the ones that are monitored a little bit high on our end. And each year we usually dedicate about $9,700. This year they're asking for an even 10, split between 2 fiscal years. So the first agreement was 2 years for about $19,000, and then we extended it last year for just the $97.50. We're asking to extend it for 2 years this time, so it would go to 2028, June 30th, 2028 for $20,000 total. We did know that we wanted to continue this, so in that line item, there's $12,000 already budgeted, so it's not we don't have to increase the budget to accommodate this. And if you've got any questions for me, I can try and answer them.
Thank you, Alexa. Any questions or comments? Is there any public comment? If none, a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the modification to the joint funding agreement with USGS for the Carson River Basin groundwater levels and water quality monitoring program.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Alexa. 9B, consideration of possible action, memorandum of agreement with the State of Nevada Department of Veteran Services for the use of office space at the William N. Pennington Life Center. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joe Sanford for the record. Churchill County has had an agreement with the Nevada Department of Veteran Services for many years to provide them office space. They have been located in our annex building and provided services out of that location. Over the last year, we've known that we would need to do some renovation and changes to that annex building to allow for its occupation by CNHD, and that would cause a displacement of this service. So in January, we gave them our 90-day notice that they would need to vacate. They requested some accommodation and assistance in finding a different location. They worked with the county manager to identify some space in the Life Center, and we have made an agreement to allow them to be in that location until the end of the year. At that time, we'll reevaluate what office space exists throughout the county. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions or comments for Joe? Is there any public comment? If none, a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to a memorandum of agreement with the State of Nevada Department of Veteran Services for the office space in the William N. Pennington Life Center with the termination date of December 31st, 2026, and to authorize the county manager to execute the agreement.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. C, consideration and possible action, approval of an award from the State of Nevada Department of Transportation of a grant in the amount of $1,587,308 for the renovation of 859 South Main Street for use by CART as a transportation facility. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joe Sanford again for the record. This is an interesting project. We actually applied for this award some time ago in 2022 and 2023. We ended up having a little difficulty with the state regarding some requirements they were going to have with this grant about ongoing monitoring. The ongoing monitoring costs would not have been covered, and at the request that they had could have been quite substantial in cost. We've worked with them for quite some time to get that figured out, and they have come to a solution that will allow them to do their monitoring with our ongoing CART program reports to reduce any ongoing cost. At this time, this would be a request to have $1,587,308 to use to renovate the old CCCOM building on Main Street for use by the CART program. There are currently some CART buses that are already parked there. This would allow us to do maintenance operations at that location, as well as to have an admin location serviced out of that building. This would be a capital project, so it'd be funds out of the capital project fund. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions or comments?
In the packet there, it says that we're not doing anything to the second floor. Is it not usable? Do you think we can use it for something? If there's money left over, we might work on that, or?
Absolutely. So our current proposal does not include specific design layouts and plans. That will be being done through the process when we do a design of what that building can do and can't do. Part of the project includes a structural analysis so that we can make a determination of whether that second floor is usable space.
Okay, and then on the schematic and development design, it says that it'll be provided for discussion and review. Who is discussing that and who's reviewing that? Is that staff or is that us, the commission?
That will be done once the design portion and the structural analysis is complete, and then we can typically it will go through the Public Works Department for review, and then you'll have a chance to review it when any construction contract is issued.
And then the schedule that was presented is not accurate, so I assume once you get everything dialed in, a new schedule will come out for review as well?
Correct. We will update the schedule once I have confirmation from the board that we are interested in accepting this grant.
And then on the agenda item, it says the amount that you stated, but in the commitment letter, it's a different amount. So which amount are we approving today? Are we approving the commitment letter amount, or are we approving what you have on the agenda report?
The amount in the agenda report, the $1,587,308 is the total award, our portion being $158,307.
Okay, so the commitment letter that's attached is not correct, and I just want to make sure that we don't have to come back for.
I believe that's the total project cost.
I know the match is, I mean, that's how I'm reading the commitment letter. I just want to make sure, I don't want to approve the wrong amount.
Yes, this is because the original commitment letter included some contingency that was ultimately removed from the award.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions or comments? Is there any public comment? If none, a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the award from the Nevada Department of Transportation as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Joe. D, consideration and possible action, approval of the settlement agreement and release between Churchill County and R. Clay Hendricks in the amount of $5,000. Wade?
Wade Carner, Deputy District Attorney for the record. This item is a ratification of the settlement reached between Poole and Mr. Hendricks to settle that lawsuit, and so this is a ratification of that settlement along with approval of the settlement agreement and release. Once executed, would allow the case to be dismissed. So I can answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Wade. Any questions or comments from board or staff? Is there any public comment? If none, a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the settlement agreement and release between Churchill County and R. Clay Hendricks in the amount of $5,000.
I will second that. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. 10 consent items. Did anyone want to pull any of those off? Okay, if not, a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Did anyone have anything they wanted to consider for a future agenda item?
Not this time.
Okay, we'll go to Commissioner and Management Staff reports. Commissioner Hyde.
I've got a lot of meetings coming up. Met with Nevada Energy yesterday, discussing the Green Link, discussing if Churchill County is going to receive, knock out any power for Churchill County. That is not in the works. So we're going to continue to have meetings with them. I'll give you a further update next meeting when we figure out. I mean, it's a great business. They want guaranteed money before they want it. But anyway, it wasn't what I wanted to hear. As you well know, we need power for industry, and that's not going to happen with Green Link until we get industry here, apparently. So I'll keep you updated on that. I've got CNHD meetings. I've got social services meetings today and tomorrow. So I've got a busy couple days. So thank you. And I also want to give a shout out to Fallon for hosting the scrimmage for UNR. It was a great turnout, even though it was cold. Fallon always shows up and fills the stands. The city did a great job, and the school district did a great job putting that together. You know, I asked Brian Mello, the AD, how he made that happen, and it was really just one phone call and ask, like Commissioner Blakey always says, you can't get anything done unless you ask. So that was nice to see. Brought some people to Fallon, and we got to show off our community, and that went over very well.
Okay, I had a NACO and CWSD subcommittee meeting last week, and then I've got an RTC meeting later today. And I just wanted to quickly note, if you guys, public too, all of us here in the room, if you get a chance at night, drive by the football field at the school district and see the lights that are put up for Sheriff Richard Hickox. It's very special. So with that, Commissioner Blakey.
I was able to take a tour of Sierra Solar Project. It's on schedule, and we're getting us some revenue here pretty soon, I hope, which will enhance our community. I had a fire board meeting this week. The department expressed some concern with their budget for fuel, and I told them to reach out to the county manager's office a lot sooner than they thought they needed to make sure that everything stays intact, but not to compromise service at any point. And also thank them personally and on behalf of this board for their participation on Sunday with the procession to bring Sheriff Hickox to Churchill County. The museum lecture series is over for the spring. It was quite fantastic. They have really stepped that up down there. I've always been a fan of the Pickles cartoonist, and he was there last night, and it was pretty interesting how you make a cartoon. I had no idea that you didn't have to work to have a job. And then also, finally, on behalf of this board, I want to make sure that our thoughts and prayers are continuing with Sheriff Hickox's family and the Sheriff's Department. So hang in there, Lee. Thank you.
Sherry? Wade?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Chris?
Just a couple things. I too went out to the Sierra Solar Project, and it's amazing how quickly that project got to the state that it's in right now. It's hard to believe that they're not done with phase 1 yet and that there's a phase 2 coming. If you ever get a chance to go out there, drive up as high as you can and have a look, and you will be amazed at what that looks like. As you're aware, I'm going on vacation on Friday, and the museum director, Mel Glover, asked me to take Bradley the Badger with me to take some pictures while I'm out there so that they can post some of those pictures at the museum. So I will do that.
Linda?
Interest allocation for February was just over $200,000. And then sample ballots are going to hit your mailboxes this week. We did add mail ballots will include a notice that informing voters of the passing of our beloved sheriff that is just tragic, and that his name will stay on the ballot, and because it was just too late for us to even pull it off, but the notice will go out. We've been working with the DA's office and the Secretary of State's office, just making sure we've got, all our ducks in a row. I am also going to continue working with Ann to get more information out to the public, so we're just going to get what we need to get out when we do. And that's it.
Okay, Tara? Mr. Mallory?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to mention that the position of sheriff is the oldest county position in existence in our system of governance, coming all the way from England back almost 1,000 years ago, and that position will be sorely missed, and it's crucial to the proper operation of the county. So my thoughts and prayers are with the commission as they go about considering how to deal with that situation. Thank you.
Tasha? Lee?
All right. I was hoping to keep it together over this, but I thank you all. As you know, the amount of support has been overwhelming, which can thank everybody personally, but there's been so much. But the amount of support in the procession was the reason why we all like to stay in Churchill County.
Ain't that the truth? You guys are going to kill me. 13 claims and payroll are going around. At this time, is there any public comment? Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.